we'll give everybody an extra minute or two here to pop on since we're doing this a little bit early. I'm really excited for this because when some of the news was starting to come out a couple of days ago, actually the end of last week, I went to Tiger and said, I want you to do research on this because I want the comparison and I want to be able to teach on it. And so if you guys like this, which I'm pretty confident you will, this is going to be something that you will share if I do my job properly, because Tiger really knocked it out of the park on this. And so this is all her. So we will have some fun, but this is going to be a lot of information. I'm going to try to go pretty quickly through this, but if you know me already, I'm going to take some non sequiturs off of this because there's some really important conversation points from this conversation that I think need to be addressed right now because of what's happening in the world, and conversations that are starting in the medical establishment about using different products, different chemicals to address the issues that we actually resolve naturally, which is really important. So we're at $1.10. We're still rising, so they're popping in here. So I'll give everybody another minute. We'll see if we can get to 100. If we hit 120, I'm going immediately. So we're 2 minutes over. 15, 16. Wait for it. Wait for it. Wait for it. 17, 18, 19, 18, 19. Wait. 18. How did we lose one? 19. 20. Okay, let's go. All right. Welcome to Root U. I am your professor today, Clayton Thomas. Her Excellency, the Duchess, Dr. Christina Rahm, is actually traveling. So today is going to be a very fun subject, fun topic. I don't use that lightly because it's actually going to be doing a comparison of something that people use to have fun. So this is going to be interesting because usually, when we do the medical disclaimer, we actually have to talk about something of treating an issue. But today we're not going to talk about treating issues. We're actually going to talk about preventing a lot of issues in many different aspects, but looking at how to use my favorite product in a way that many people might not think about, and a comparison and contrast of what many people are using as a party drug. But now the conversation is coming forward that in medicine, they're thinking about using this concept. So your disclaimer, everything that we're going to talk about today is for educational purposes, and this should be educational. It's not intended as medical advice or substitute for medical advice from a physician, because I'm not one, and I'm not a qualified healthcare professional. And if you ask my wife, I'm probably not qualified for a whole heck of a lot. But you should take this information and not use it for a diagnosis, but use it as a guideline to have a conversation with your healthcare professionals and actually your friends around you. And if you have kids, you're probably going to want to share this too, because this should be educational for our teenagers and 20-year-olds as well as adults. Tiger, let's rock. Can you be slower than that? That was kind of slow. So today we're going to compare Zero-In and MDMA. And I've had talks about this before on MDMA and how Zero-In can compare. But what's going to be really interesting is to see the lines of this. What is MDMA? Well, it's methylene dioxymethamphetamine. Sorry, Roland. Also known as MDMA, it's a synthetic drug that acts as a stimulant and a hallucinogen and produces an energizing experience, and it distorts time and perception. Also, as it says, an adaptogen, which actually improves awareness and empathy in some aspects. How does it do this? Well, it just increases dopamine and serotonin and norepinephrine artificially. So it artificially increases dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine. So it's a chemical that is synthetic that synthetically increases dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine. Well, I might think that doing it naturally might be better. So we're going to dive into this. So MDMA causes a great release of serotonin and norepinephrine, causes more than dopamine, right? So serotonin, we know, plays an important role in mood, sleep, appetite, behaviors. And, well, that's why it's mood elevating. But there are some issues, right? Because if given the choice, are you going to choose a synthetic chemical or are you going to choose nature? This is the question. And if given the choice, would you do it? If you had the option. So let's go. Tiger. Who's controlling this today?
Let's Me.
Okay, so you got to be on point. I haven't taken any zero in today. Maybe I should.
You might need to take some zero in. Maybe I need zero in.
You might need to take a few of them right now, because if you take enough of them, you're going to have this same effect. We're going to get into that. So what are the effects of MDMA? Well, by releasing large amounts of serotonin, MDMA causes the brain to become significantly depleted of the neurotransmitter. So look at that. It's causing an artificial increase of MDMA, which causes the brain to become depleted. That's not good. Half-life is about 8 hours. That's long, and it disappears after 8 hours. But it takes about 5 half-lives for over 95% of the drug to be cleared of the body. So this is why people that are using this synthetic drug can have issues for days after doing it, because you are literally frying your brain. So you have a reduced number of serotonergic neurons 7 years later after doing this consistently. So what does that mean? It not only stays in your system for a while, but it destroys your serotonin pathways, even though for a very short period of time, it's boosting a serotonin experience. So what is low serotonin associated with? Poor memory, depression, people with continual MDMA use regularly experience confusion, depression, anxiety, paranoia, impairment of memory and attention processes. And studies have found that the extent of MDMA use in humans correlates with a decrease of serotonin metabolites and other markers of serotonin function and the degree of memory impairment. So using a chemical that now the establishment is saying could be beneficial for the treatment of depression leads to more depression and anxiety and paranoia. I'm sorry, that doesn't make a lot of sense. But the effects on norepinephrine contribute to cognitive impairment, emotional excitation, and euphoria. Not just immediate, but issues down the road. So this comes into the aspect of, when you're young and you think you want to party and you want to have fun, using a chemical is going to screw you up for decades later. That's not very good. This is the problem with chemicals. And if we look at PET scans, Positron emission tomography, and you use PET scans, you use a lot of PET scans for cancer and such, because you can get a really good picture of what's going on in the body in different aspects. Brain imaging studies who have stopped using MDMA have shown decreases in brain activity at rest in the prefrontal, parietal, and medial temporal cortices. That's your cortex, as well as the amygdala, which is actually one of my favorite words, the cingulate, and the hippocampus, which are all different parts of the brain. So what does that show? Is that this chemical is not just screwing up one part of the brain, it's screwing up a lot of them. These are the regions of the brain that are needed for learning, for memory, emotional formation, and processing. PET scans have shown that one low dose of MDMA increased cerebral blood in the ventromedial, frontal, and occipital cortex, in the inferior temporal lobe, and the cerebellum. So it increases blood flow in some areas, but it causes chaos throughout the entire system. Decreased cerebral blood flow in the motor and somatosensory cortex, the amygdala, the cingulate cortex, the insula, and the thalamus. Do you get it? This stuff causes chaos in your brain for a little boost in serotonin. Not good. Do I have to say go, Tiger? There we go. So let's look at MDMA and serotonin pathways. So MDMA primarily works by increasing the release of serotonin in the brain. Serotonin is a neurotransmitter that improves what we know: mood, emotions, social behavior, makes you feel relaxed. But here's the crazy part. Where is most of the serotonin produced? It's not produced in your brain. It's actually produced in your gut, right? So what this chemical is doing is it's forcing the serotonin pathways in your brain to release more. So it's depleting them, knowing that the primary source of production of serotonin is actually here. And those neurotransmitters that are produced here go through your vagus nerve, through your heart, which is really important, right? Because serotonin is going to help your mood, going to help emotions, and going to help social behavior. And if you don't take care of your heart, if you take your heart out of that process, right? If you remove your heart from the process of receiving some of those neurotransmitters that regulate your mood and your emotions and your social behavior, and you only do it in your brain, you're disrupting the entire process, right? So this is really, really important. Serotonin release not without consequences. The excessive release can deplete the brain's serotonin stores like we just went. So you crash afterwards because you're abusing everything up here. You're depleting everything your brain had. So you just wears out because there's nothing left. And by doing that artificially, what we know with hormones and neurotransmitters, that if you're doing it artificially, you're telling your body that it doesn't need to do it naturally. So you crash, you collapse, and you're also going to decrease your body's ability to be more effective at doing these on their own, which goes back to the initial conversation of what we were touching on. Go, Tiger. Are you guys getting that I'm kind of passionate about this subject because I kind of love this stuff? MDMA can also have secondary effects on the melatonin pathway, although they are less understood and less pronounced than its impact on serotonin. Why is serotonin important? Or why is melatonin important? Well, melatonin is a downline, what is it called? Well, here, let me rephrase it so I'll go the proper way. Serotonin is an agonist for melatonin production, but you have to understand where melatonin is produced and how this pathway can be screwed up by using MDMA. If you're using MDMA and it's serotonin in your brain, right? Where is serotonin converted to melatonin? Where is serotonin converted to DMT? It's not done in your brain. It's actually done through your pineal gland, which we've discussed numerous times. So if you're using up all the serotonin in your brain, right, and you're using this, that in turn is shutting off what's being produced in your gut. Your pineal gland is not going to get the serotonin it needs to produce melatonin. That's crazy. Next. See, this is what I get for not looking at slides and jumping ahead. How does MDMA affect the pineal gland? Well, the serotonin release primarily affects serotonin pathways in the brain, which leads to a significant release of serotonin from nerve cells. But it's done improperly, and the disruptions of your circadian rhythm, which is being done by the serotonin in your brain and not in your gut, screws up your circadian rhythm because your circadian rhythm is controlled by your pineal gland. This causes sleep disturbances and chaos because your pineal gland isn't able to convert that serotonin into melatonin, as I was just talking about. But because I'm not cheating and going ahead in my slides, we talked before we showed. But this is why we're here for class, because we're all learning today. Go, Tiger. Now we get into the fun part. So here's what we know. Regardless of what the media wants to say about how this drug could be beneficial for the treatment of depression and anxiety, it's actually going to create more of it. I wonder if that's part of a plan, but we're not going to go there today because Dr. Ram would not allow me to take that path. So let's look at nootropics versus the stimulants. What are nootropics? Often refers to as smart drugs or cognitive enhancers. You might be familiar with the movie Limitless and the Limitless pill, but even with the Limitless pill in the movie, you took a synthesized drug that gave you this boost of serotonin and dopamine, much like MDMA and Adderall. And what you look at in the Limitless pill is really a combination of MDMA and Adderall. It boosts cognitive function, but you crash like crazy, and the byproduct is death. You probably don't want that alternative. So what you want is a mechanism that can improve memory, improve focus, improve creativity, cognitive performance, but ideally at the same time, give you the ability to be relaxed and calm while being alert and focused. Now, this is not something that's been done prior to 3 years ago, because no one's ever done this before, and we're going to dive into this. So what are the mechanisms of action for most nootropics? You know, they typically work through different mechanisms that enhance neurotransmitter activity and promoting neuroplasticity, which is a term that is becoming more commonly used about giving your brain the tools it needs to create different neural pathways and learn and have better blood flow across your blood-brain barrier and allow the connection of more neurons so you function faster or things slow down if you do it right. And we'll hit on some of these. So the primary purpose, typically stimulants, right? People want to feel up when they're looking at MDMA and Adderall. They want to feel good. So you're getting this heightened alert feeling, this heightened sense of awareness, the empathy that was mentioned before. So you become more aware of your surroundings. This is what people are looking for. And honestly, this is what people are looking for in every aspect of life in today's world. You want to be able to overcome stress. You want to feel good. Our brain is actually designed to find balance. If it's imbalanced, it's going to give you signals. It's going to tell the rest of your body that it needs to feel better. This is where drug-seeking behavior comes in, and people start searching for things. You actually see the same thing in animals, in horses. If they're deficient in minerals or they're deficient in something, they'll start cribbing. They'll start chewing on fence posts. They'll start chewing on wood. They'll start chewing on different stuff because they're trying to find the things that will allow them to feel better. The problem is in our world today, the system is constructed to give you access to the things that are the worst for you, right? You got to do a little research to find the good stuff, but it's really easy to go to the street and somebody's like, hey, you want a drug? Try this. Oh, you can get a prescription for this. We'll give it to you. Oh, you know what? I know somebody that can get that for you. Problem further today is a lot of these things are laced with other chemicals that'll just kill you really quick, like fentanyl. And I speak from experience in that because my kids have had friends and I've had friends that are dead because of that specific premise. So it's not something that we want to push forward. So what we want to focus on is the nootropic aspect, the healthy way of doing this. So let's look at some of the chemical structures of what these look like. So you get dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin, epinephrine, and in the middle, the chemical of MDMA. So you can see how they're very similar in many aspects and how MDMA can be converted into the other ones in the body where different things come off and different connection points come in. So you can see how the chemical can be created to mimic the other natural neurotransmitters. I didn't take enough chemistry courses to go over this, but you can see the similarities, which is the key component of adding a little hydrochloric acid, which is in your gut, right? and this is the important part of understanding this process, that you have the chemical that you're ingesting. When it's mixed with hydrochloric acid, which is what your stomach acid is made from, that's where the synthesis takes place. We want to do this the right way. So we look towards adaptogens. And the first and only, I will argue, adaptogenic nootropic on the market that is banned substance free, by the way, kind of epic. But nootropics can enhance cognitive function. They can improve memory, focus, creativity, mood, and energy levels. Different nootropics can affect the brain in different ways, ranging from improving cerebral circulation and neuron activity to enhancing neurogenesis. And adaptogens are natural compounds that reduce stress by balancing the body's response to physical or emotional stressors. So this is really important because a true adaptogenic nootropic is not just going to give you an up. It's actually going to give you the balance of both. The ability to have the serotonin of being smooth, right? Being relaxed, being calm, but the up of dopamine. And what dopamine does is why cocaine's illegal in sports. That you have the increase in focus and clarity, that work becomes fun. Notice I didn't just say workouts and performance. I said work in general. The things that you want to do become fun. The supplementation of these adaptogenic nootropics can enable experiences of very positive effects without the negatives. So let's look at some of these ingredients. Say hello to my little friend. So velvet bean seed extract, Mucuna pruriens, is one of the most powerful little beans on the planet. Velvet bean seeds have been used for generations because they're rich in a compound called L-dopa or levodopa. L-dopa is a precursor to dopamine. L-dopa, in its synthesized version, is a primary treatment for Parkinson's. Being able to use the natural component that is going to feed your gut what it needs to produce and convert L-dopa into dopamine can be very beneficial. So it can increase dopamine levels. Dopamine is associated with feeling pleasure, with motivation and rewards. Higher dopamine levels can contribute to improved mood and motivation. It also improves performance and function. And what's interesting is every game that you have on these devices, every video game, little secret, even your root back office is actually designed to boost and ping dopamine receptors. Because when you're watching your volume, you're watching your organization, it gives you pleasure, it gives you motivation, it gives you rewards. This actually increases dopamine a little bit. Now, if you take a couple zero in and you do that, it becomes outstanding. But if you're playing video games, if you're playing on your phone and you have the volume on, and if you watch the video games that kids play today versus when I grew up, if you were playing a first-person shooter game, you had the old method of just going through the process and saying, okay, I'm going through this tunnel, or I'm finding people and I'm shooting people. Now, what they've done is the screen is loaded with all these different things that you can get. All these little boxes and prizes and things you can get are pinging dopamine receptors. So your brain is seeing that there's more things, there's more rewards you can get. So it keeps you going and you don't want to stop, and you keep being driven. It's playing with the dopamine receptors in your brain. But what's really cool is if you have the endogenous, the natural dopamine levels already well raised, you can control this process because you'll recognize what's going on, and then you manage it more effectively, and you can direct your intention as you want versus being controlled by a device. If you have kids, have you ever tried to get a kid off of playing a video game? Have you ever tried to get a teenager for the sticks and watch what happens in their behavior and their mood when you remove them? Have you ever turned off a machine that a kid was playing because they weren't paying attention to you and watch what happens? They go nuts. But if you do it naturally, you can have absolute control over it. Let's look at studies. So in 2014, tiger. Using rats, researchers published a study that determined that velvet beans could promote relaxation and reduce stress through a series of tension-inducing tests to assess whether L-Dopa enhances learning capabilities. Study conducted in 2015, they received 100 milligrams of L-Dopa. The results showed that the treated group could recall accuracy for new words over 5 learning sessions compared to the placebo group. In addition, another study tested the reaction time of 8 young adults who received 200 milligrams of L-Dopa and found that the reaction time was significantly shorter than that of the placebo group. These results demonstrate that velvet bean seed has nootropic and brain-enhancing capabilities. So let's look at the case studies that have already been done on the use of 0N. 0N actually reduces reaction time and improves recovery and improves cognitive capability. And the important part when it comes to the learning aspect, if you have higher levels of dopamine, and this is why this is so important for kids and college students, if you have higher levels of dopamine, you are able to retain more information. One, learning becomes fun, studying becomes fun, but you're able to retain more information. And then if you continue to do that and you continue to have higher levels of dopamine, the recall of those things that you've learned becomes more effective. So if you're taking tests, if you're studying for tests, if you're wanting to learn in school, this is one of the most important things kids and young adults and even adults should be doing, because the more you have, the better you are. And this is clinically proven. Let's go to the next one. Let's just look at velvet bean compared to MDMA. Just velvet bean seeds. Contains L-Dopa. It's a naturally occurring precursor to the neurotransmitter dopamine, one of my favorite things. And it can be converted into dopamine in the brain, right? So how's it done, though? It's taken in the gut. Your gut processes it, turns it into L-Dopa, goes to your vagus nerve, goes to the brain. MDMA is synthetic. It's a substituted amphetamine that primarily acts as a serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine releasing agent and reuptake inhibitor, leading to changes in mood, perception, and increased energy in here, but not here. And we've gone over the negatives. So you have natural alternative that can be very, very good for you. Synthetic, not very good. So velvet bean seeds and their extracts are often used to improve dopamine levels in the brain. They can be explored as a natural remedy to, let me make sure that I'm touching on this properly, because we're not going to talk about treating any issues. They've been explored as a remedy to support issues and conditions characterized by a dopamine deficiency, right? These are things such as Parkinson's disease. Velvet bean seeds are not used for recreational purposes and don't induce the euphoric or stimulant effects associated with MDMA. So you don't get the euphoria, but you get the opportunity to feel really, really good because of the L-Dopa. That's the velvet bean seed side. MDMA, well, we've already touched on it. You go a little bit nuts for a little bit, and then it fries your brain. I like velvet bean seeds, but you don't want to take velvet bean seeds on their own. What you want to do is, through a little bioscience engineering, combine them with a couple other ingredients like pine bark extract. Pine bark, also known as pycnogenol, right? So when you're doing your research, you can look up the active ingredient a lot of times of something, or you can look at the source that actually has it in it. What Dr. Rom likes to do is use the purest form of a source that's going to have the ingredients inside that source, because they're there naturally, along with other precursors that allows this process to work properly. So what is pycnogenol, or pine bark extract? It's a natural derivative of pine bark that comes from a pine tree. It contains a variety of bioactive compounds, including proanthocyanidins, sorry, Roland, and other polyphenols, which can have various effects on the body and potentially influence neurotransmitters. So what's really important with that is it's not just the pycnogenol or the proanthocyanidins, it's the additional polyphenols that make up the consistency of this extract that provide the profound benefits. It optimizes cognition. It's been found to increase levels of dopamine and norepinephrine. It can impact chronic stress by improving neurotransmitter function with dopamine and serotonin, which leads to a reduction in stress. And this is really important. If you're stressed, if your cortisol levels are high, if you have anxiety, pine bark extract is very beneficial, and especially in conjunction with these other nootropic components, because it can relax your mood. It can help to decrease cortisol levels. So you have less anxiety, you have less stress, you feel good, you become more productive, because more serotonin, more dopamine, and more norepinephrine naturally is very, very good for you. Some research suggests that pine bark extract may help modulate the body's stress response, potentially indirectly influencing neurotransmitter levels. I just said that, and I read it differently. Amazing. Pine bark extract is rich in polyphenols, which are potent antioxidants. Remember back in the early 90s when people just talked about antioxidants and how beneficial they were? We're past that now. So, but pine bark extract's loaded with some great antioxidants that help reduce oxidative stress. And pine bark extract may indirectly support the health of your neurotransmitter systems. Oh, it's quite good for you. But you don't want to take it alone. Let's maybe look at some benefits. There was a study. Are you serious that there was actually another study? Are you saying that the products that we have in the rootverse actually, the savant, the bioscience engineer from Harvard, might have the ability to crush research that, when putting together a formula, has the intent of taking pieces of one area, pieces of another, and combining them to amplify their effects? One study consisting of young men found that using 180 milligrams of pycnogenol can create a significant increase in blood flow. You know what's funny? Is they did this study in young men, but I guarantee you, older men were going, hold on. Are you telling me this can increase blood flow and can improve memory, focus, mood, and decision-making? Could be good. 60 individuals aged 35 to 55 received 50 megs of pine bark extract 3 times a day for 12 weeks. And after 12 weeks, the results concluded there was a 16% increase in mood, a 13.4% increase in sustained attention, an 8.9% increase in mental performance, and a 30% decrease in oxidative stress. Interesting. To reduce the risk of neurodegenerative diseases, it's been reported that pine bark can prevent the accumulation of oxidatively damaged proteins. Furthermore, pycnogenol reduces free radical production, boosts a neuron's natural defense systems, and is a free radical scavenger. Based on this evidence, pine bark extract can improve overall cognitive performance. But here's the cool part, is that you can look at it individually, but when you start stacking these components, you don't need as much to get a greater effect, because you do magnification and multiplication versus addition. Because traditionally, if you're looking at a single ingredient, if you want more benefit, you have to increase your dosage, right? Instead of 50 milligrams, you start taking 180 milligrams. And then once you get acclimated to 180 milligrams, well, then you have to take more. And you get to a point where you might be using too much of a, to receive a benefit. And your body becomes adaptive to what you're taking. Well, if you do smaller amounts, engineered properly and properly stacked, then you don't need to increase the dosage. You just get the same effect each time. That is bioscience engineering, done only by one thus far. So let's look at the comparison between pine bark and MDMA. We know what MDMA is. We've touched on that. Synthetic amphetamine. Pine bark is natural, derived from pine tree, and is loaded with goodies. Natural, synthetic destroys your brain. Go hug a tree. It's good for you, right? Pine bark's been used for its benefits for a long time. Its antioxidant properties, its ability to improve circulation and improve cognitive support. And it's not used for recreational purposes and does not produce any psychoactive effects. But it is very good for you. But you can combine it properly. MDMA, not good. Pine bark, loaded with good things, may indirectly influence neurotransmitter systems by protecting your neurons and reducing oxidative stress and improving blood flow in your brain. MDMA, not very good. We're going here. And then we get to the sunshine hormone. Know that vitamin D is actually not a vitamin, it's a hormone. Where is vitamin D primarily acquired? It's not in a supplement, it's from the sun. You need to be in the sun. Your body converts sunlight into vitamin D by sun exposure. It's very, very important. You do not need sunscreen. Allow the professor to make sure that he expresses this clearly. You don't need sunscreen. It's horrible for you. Now, if you remove the heavy metals and environmental toxins that can be in your tissue that would react to sunlight that cause a burn, if you remove those and you get in the sun and you do get a lot of sun exposure, your skin will heal very quickly. But if you take good sources of vitamin D, vitamin D3 specifically, in a supplement form can act as a catalyst in the production of other neurotransmitters. Let's go to the next one. So vitamin D, and specifically D3, can play a role in regulating the synthesis of serotonin and dopamine. Some studies suggest that vitamin D receptors are present in the brain and involved in serotonin synthesis and signaling. And it can improve mood regulation. Kind of important. Also for dopamine. It's an antioxidant and anti-inflammatory, which may help protect dopamine-producing neurons from oxidative stress. And it can assist in cognitive function, where it's involved in cognitive improvement for memory, for attention, and motivation. And vitamin D deficiency has been associated with cognitive decline. Adequate vitamin D levels support cognitive function indirectly by helping preserve your dopamine pathways. So think about this. Are you happier and more functional when you're in the sun or in the dark? Sun. The supplementation of good vitamin D can support that process. It improves your mood. Everybody's happier when they're in the sun. Isn't that funny? Which is why we like to be around Dr. Ram, because she's a lot like the sun. Then we look at anhydrous caffeine, and this is really important. Not all caffeine is the caffeine that you think it is. One of the world's most widely used psychoactive drugs, caffeine is a powerful nootropic that can improve reaction time, alertness, memory, and mood. It also improves athletic ability and improves physical and mental fatigue. Say, what? So let's think of the places that you can get caffeine. One, Rom Roast. So best coffee on the planet. So if you need your caffeine fix, you've got your source for your traditional caffeine with Rom Roast. But we're going to take it a step further. Caffeine works primarily by antagonizing adenosine receptors in the brain. Adenosine is a neurotransmitter that promotes relaxation and sleepiness. Hold on. Did you get that? Caffeine works primarily by antagonizing adenosine receptors in the brain. It's a neurotransmitter that promotes relaxation and sleepiness. So when caffeine blocks adenosine receptors, it prevents adenosine from binding to them, leading to increased wakefulness and alertness. So caffeine blocks one receptor to allow you to stay alert and stay focused. But while its primary mechanism of action is an adenosine receptor blocker, it may also have influence on serotonin transmission. So caffeine can increase the availability of serotonin in certain brain regions by inhibiting the reuptake of serotonin. This effect is relatively weak compared to medications specifically designed to target serotonin reuptake. Serotonin reuptake inhibition. Oh, there's an entire drug industry based on that. So if you're taking those, you might find that providing yourself a natural alternative might be a little more healthy and might be more effective for you. The increase of dopamine and serotonin activity in the brain areas contributes to caffeine's ability to improve your mood, increase alertness, and enhance your cognitive performance. But in this instance, anhydrous caffeine can also act as a catalyst to improve the production of dopamine and serotonin. So it gives you the ability to have alertness and focus and more dopamine and serotonin. But there's one key component that we're going to hit on at the end of this as we go through these ingredients, because the one key component is not the ingredients themselves. It's what it opens up. Let's go to the next one. We saw tyrosine, N-Acetyl L-Tyrosine, also usually talked about as L-tyrosine or NALT for those that are the biohacking community that want to use an acronyms. N-Acetyl Tyrosine is the highly bioavailable form of the amino acid L-tyrosine. So it uses enzyme tyrosine hydroxylase to convert L-tyrosine into L-dopa. We've heard of L-dopa before, to boost cognitive function and play a role in the synthesis of neurotransmitters, including dopamine, norepinephrine, and epinephrine. Tyrosine is a precursor for the synthesis of several important neurotransmitters in the brain, which we just touched on. And then we go to the next one, because we know dopamine, norepinephrine, which is noradrenaline, and serotonin are good. But norepinephrine is another neurotransmitter involved in mood regulation, alertness, and improving your stress responses. Let's go. Let's look at the chemical composition between L-tyrosine and MDMA, or as Tiger wanted to put on this one, NDM, because apparently there's no A this time. MDMA, synthetic, causes problems. Tyrosine and acetyl L-tyrosine, which is, as we just saw, the best form, modified and is important in improving the synthesis of neurotransmitters like dopamine and norepinephrine. Oh, does it naturally. How about that? Let's look at the next one. MDMA, lots of problems, leads to the synthetic release, and acetyltyrosine causes a natural production of them. But key component is not just using L-tyrosine on its own. is using the right amount and the right combination with some of these other ingredients that we've already talked about, so you get better effects. And now we get to the conversation of what green tea provides that is so beneficial and why people love drinking green tea, which is L-Theanine, which is an amino acid that is unique in its ability to relax the body and provide the brain with GABA, right? Which is a neurotransmitter focused on relaxation of the central nervous system and allowing dopamine and serotonin levels to improve your mood. So L-theanine increases levels of gamma amino butyric acid. It's easier to say GABA in the brain. And if you say GABA, you just assume, this is the fun part with using complex and acronyms. You say GABA really strong, people just know that you know gamma amino butyric acid. Not really, but it sounded good. GABA is an inhibitory neurotransmitter that helps regulate anxiety and stress. Higher levels can have a calming effect on your mood. This is why people love to drink multiple cups of green tea, because it actually helps you relax. And just the process of drinking green tea is relaxing. L-theanine's been shown to increase levels of dopamine and serotonin. The neurotransmitters are associated with mood regulation by enhancing dopamine and serotonin. So what you've seen is each of these compounds actually have different mechanisms and different pathways for improving dopamine and serotonin production and use. And you see how they can be layered. Some aid in the relaxation. Some aid in the excitation. And it's all about balance. And there's one key component that's going to control this, which we'll hit on. So due to L-theanine's ability to cross the blood-brain barrier, it can lower blood pressure, rejuvenate and relax the body, improve reaction time and focus, and change your mood, and reduce physical and mental stress. L-theanine helps increase alpha brain waves, which is included in mental relaxation and concentration. So let's look at that. Let's look at this from a sports performance conversation really quickly, right? If you're an athlete and being a sprinter, right? If you're getting in the blocks or you're getting ready to do any sport, the most important thing you need to do is be relaxed. A relaxed muscle is a fast muscle. A tight muscle is very, very slow. And it's terrible. Because have you ever seen an athlete get stressed when it comes to crunch time and they tense up and they choke? We're turning off that process. It's giving you the opportunity to perform at a level that you've never been at before. Tiger, let's go. Yes, Claire, if you're tense, you can blow up your hamstrings. Personal experience in that one. So let's look at the mechanisms comparing L-theanine and MDMA. L-theanine works to increase levels of GABA. So you get calm, relaxed, amazing feeling. MDMA, not so good. Going to artificially cause a problem and complications over time. Let's see what we get. One of Dr. Ram's favorites, right? You hear her talk about this all the time. She's in India right now. She's leaving India. And this compound, this root, wait, what? Are you saying that one of the most powerful mechanisms that you find in multiple products inside the root-averse is actually a root? Oh, there's that. So what makes turmeric so special? Well, curcumin, so the curcuminoids, the specific extract of turmeric, has been studied for its potential neuroprotective and neuromodulatory effects. While it does not directly stimulate neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin, it can influence various pathways and processes in the brain that will indirectly affect neurotransmitter activity. So this is the interesting part, right? We've seen these dopamine and serotonin agonists. Some will help to relax mood, some will increase mood. And now you have one of the most powerful adaptogens that will help protect neurons from damage and degeneration. It's been shown to increase the production of one of the most important components of conversations in neuroscience today, which is BDNF, which are brain-derived neurotrophic factors. Now, if you're a neurologist, or if you're one who's studying neurology, or if you're a biohacker and you want to talk about neurotransmitters and brain health and performance, brain-derived neurotrophic factors are one of the important conversations to have. BDNF can indirectly influence neurotransmitter systems by supporting the survival and functions of neurons. So you can see why turmeric, and specifically the extract of turmeric, the curcuminoids, the pure curcuminoids, can be so important in this process, because the orange color, the yellowish color that you get in zero in comes from the curcuminoids, because they're very, very powerful as their color shows you. These will provide the protective mechanisms and also the catalyst for the improved function of dopamine and serotonin and norepinephrine. Some research suggests that curcuminoids may promote neurogenesis, which is the formation of new neurons in the brain. Key to neuroplasticity, new formation of neurons, is where those brain-derived neurotrophic factors come in. Why is this important? Well, because everybody wants better brain function. You want better cognitive function. You want to zone out. If you're an athlete, what you hear athletes talk about, you can listen to Michael Jordan, you can listen to Kobe, you can listen to any Novak Djokovic, you can listen to any athlete. They'll talk about getting in the zone. And a lot of times what they have to do is work in the locker room to find this relaxed state where they can find their focus. They center their focus. They're working to adjust their autonomic nervous system, right? So they're decreasing their stress levels so they can become more relaxed, more focused. They're working to increase dopamine and serotonin levels, right? And they're working to do it endogenously by getting their brain to do this. And this only works on a short time frame. This is why if you're under a lot of stress in a game, you might see someone start a game really, really well, but as those neurotransmitters are used up, when it comes down to crunch time, they don't have any left, and you see this cascade. You don't want that. So we have the little golden pill of greatness that gives you the combination of all of these ingredients strategically combined to allow them to amplify each of their effects to give you all of the benefits that we just discussed. But here's the key, and here's the secret. And this is where adaptogenic nootropics get separated. This is where we separate greatness from good. The ability to understand how your intention can control and dictate this process. When this is functioning properly, when you decalcify your pineal gland, what does that? Clean slate. When you recrystallize your pineal gland, what does that? Clean slate. When you remove the neurotoxins that screw up your neurological system, that cause disruption and chaos, what does that? Clean slate. and you support the gut in creating the right environment to where your gut can metabolize good things and reduce the inflammation in your gut and systemically. What does that? Restore. What's one of the main components of Restore? Why is Restore orange? This guy, pure curcuminoids. So you're getting an extra hit of these curcuminoids in Restore. So is Restore an adaptogenic nootropic on its own? Absolutely. Which is why it's phenomenal in sports to go alongside Zero In, which is part of the performance pack. But when you do this, when you decrease the toxicity, you get the pineal gland to work properly, you get your gut working properly, and then you feed it what it needs to produce dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine naturally, endogenously. Do you know what controls this process? You do. This is what's amazing about this little component. This is what I've been able to experience and why I get so excited talking about this specific product, because I understand what this stuff does because I've played with it. Most of you have used one or two. But those of you that have gone beyond and started playing with these mechanisms and understand that there's nothing to fear. Did you just see what we went over? That there's no negatives to this. You use MDMA, use these chemicals, they will destroy you. Notice I didn't say might. These chemicals will destroy you. What nature is giving us doesn't have the negatives. And when you combine them strategically, and then you combine them with its siblings, this is why they're the Trinity. You combine them in a manner that gives you all of the tools. It is your intention that dictates what you want to do. You want to go crush workouts? You want to compete at a level that you've never imagined before? It's there for you. You want to go out to the club and go hang out with friends and go drink and go party and feel absolutely outstanding? You have that too. It's all you. You control this. What these ingredients are doing are giving you the mechanisms to dictate your world. You're giving your gut, your heart, your brain what it needs to manifest whatever you want in this world. This is one of the best lessons you can get when you figure out that you actually control and create your environment. And we got research to show it. Hit the last one, Tiger. Booyah, Stuart. And not only is there all this literature that you can reference, if you go to the International Science Nutrition Society, sciencenutritionsociety.com, you can look at clinical case studies that have already been done on athletes, that have been done on autistic kids, that have been done on people with Parkinsonism, people with neurodegenerative issues. And guess what? They feel freaking outstanding.